Do you know that with every click, search, and post leaves a digital footprint? But where exactly does those footprint leads? Ladies and gentlemen, today, me and my members will be discussing our topic, Think Critically, Click Wisely, a report on privacy, data protection, and you. Now first, why Module 8? As we all know, technology is becoming a central part of our lives, especially in our digital life. So it is important for us to know that this topic has strong connection to media and information literacy, as well as having high relevance to students and social media users. For a quick background of our topic, and this topic will mostly revolve around in the understanding of the word privacy and how, like most concepts, it is quite difficult to give a full definition of the word privacy in one or two sentences. There is quite literally no universal definition for it, as individuals and different countries offer different meanings and value of the word privacy. But if we were to give a general meaning or a personal or general term for the word privacy, basically it suggests a need to protect and restrict the access by others to one's personal information. Privacy also concerns all of us as individuals and as part of a society. It concerns not only the information about us that we create knowingly, but also the ones that we create unknowingly. Privacy is equally relevant to information collected or distributed by private, public, and community-based institutions. These community-based institutions will be discussed in the report later on. Now, in this module, we will focus on privacy, data protection, and digital responsibility, as well as to emphasize both individual and institutional roles, and to also encourage all of you to use your critical thinking skills in media use. Now, how is it relevant, or why is this relevant to students or to any of you listening? Well, when you listen to our topic in this report, you will learn how to properly use online learning platforms without leaking your personal information, and to also know how you manage your social media use, and of course, to be aware of your digital footprints and where our privacy leads. So we need to be aware where our privacy are. Now, in Unit 1, in order to understand privacy in MIL, we first have to know the concepts of privacy. These are, obviously, first, privacy, personal information, digital footprint, online reputation, and lastly, privacy settings. Now, in the following slides, I will project to you an image, and you will have to guess what that image represents in either of these 5 concepts. So, let's start. Now, what does this image represent? This image represents privacy. Now, if we recall back to our background, as I said, privacy basically does not have a universal meaning for it. But if we were to give it one, it is basically the need to protect one's personal information, because privacy is a fundamental right. A fundamental human right that supports freedom of association, thought, and expression, as well as the freedom from discrimination. Now, next image is a very obvious one, personal information. Personal information or personal data is defined as any information relating to a specific person, such as an example is the usernames or passwords that they use, their mobile numbers, their address, and etc. Next image, another obvious one, is, that's right, digital footprint. Digital footprint refers to one's unique set of traceable digital activities, actions, and communications manifested on the internet or digital devices. An example of this would be this post right here, where a guy posting on Instagram on what seems like him on a private jet and going to a travel day in New York. But he was later exposed by another person who saw him on the same flight or on the same plane as him. So he was exposed of not actually owning a real private jet. That is digital footprint, as that is now will forever be on the internet, whether you delete it or not, as another person has already exposed you of lying. So that is your digital footprint. Next image is, what does this image represent? It represents online reputation. Online reputations are the things online that you have liked, shared, and commented on, as well as what others have shared about you may shape what others think about you or even behave towards you. An example of this would be a recent, or this was like last year, a few years ago maybe, of the controversy or the issue of the K-pop girl group BINI, of them being on a variety show, eating street foods. There were spliced clips online being spread of making a false narrative of them, what seems like being grossed out or being ignorant of their own country's foods or their own country's culture. Now, this is an example of online reputation, as those spliced clips created a false narrative of them, which changed the way the public saw them or perceived them, which ruined their career or their reputation online, which led them to even complain or file a complaint against those people who edited out those spliced clips. Another example would be this right here, a username on a gaming app called Mobile Legends with their name being Biceps Lover. Now, how is that online reputation, you ask? That is connected to online reputation, as that is how you present yourself on the internet, or in this case, on this mobile gaming app. You are representing yourself as a Biceps Lover. That is now your reputation on that gaming app. So next, this word or this image represents privacy settings. Now, privacy settings is part of a social networking website or digital device like your smartphones that allows you to partly control who amongst third parties can directly see or access your information, bearing in mind that the services used also collects data on you, or allows it to be collected by the apps you use or content you access. An example of this would be when we install new apps to our phone or to our device, and when we log in or sign onto them, it always asks us to have them access to our personal information. So it is always important to know how to go through our privacy settings in order to know which app or which third-party users should we allow have access to our personal information or to have access to our device's information. Now, this time let's move on to privacy competency. By the word competency, it is basically the skills or abilities required for an individual to perform. So if we put the two words together, privacy competencies is basically these competencies encompass the knowledge, the skills, and the attitudes a person needs to critically and purposefully interact with information, media, and digital technology of all forms. The types of privacy competency are as follows. First, the management of online privacy. Second is the protection of personal information. Third is the ethical use of online data. And lastly is the online data creation and use. Now let us go through them one by one in more detail. Now, how do you manage your online privacy? Well, to properly manage your online privacy, we must possess, or you must possess, discriminative judgment when sharing personal information online or offline. When we say discriminative judgment, it is basically the ability to analyze and use information based on facts. Because we all know that managing online privacy starts with making informed decisions about what to post, what to share, or what to withhold close to you, and not expose your information on the internet. So you must have this critical or discriminative judgment to properly analyze which information should we share online or not. This also reflects control over one's digital footprint. Another competency is the protection of personal information. Now, how do we protect our personal information exactly? Well, we must understand when and how to demand privacy and anonymity, and when to respect the privacy and anonymity of others. This directly relates to safeguarding our personal data and identity, including the use of privacy tools for protection. Another is to also understand privacy risks and benefits in digital environments and adjust privacy settings accordingly. We all know that protecting personal information is a must, and this requires the ability to assess risks and applying proper privacy settings to secure data. Now, the third competency is the ethical use of online data. Like this image right here, this meme that says, "Why not follow the code of ethics?" Am I right? Well, to properly follow the code of ethics, we must know how to properly use the personal information of others and how to respect the privacy of others. This clearly reflects responsible and ethical handling of other people's data. Another is to understand the need for and value of personal privacy rights in cyberspace. This recognizes privacy as a human right and guides ethical behavior in using information. Now guys, if you don't know what cyberspace is basically the global, borderless digital environment that are interconnected to each other by the internet. So in cyberspace, we are all connected as through the internet as one. Now lastly, the last privacy competency is online data creation and use. Now, online data creation and use involves being aware of the commodifications and monetization of personal profiles and information. This focuses on understanding how personal data is being collected, created, and monetized online. Now, commodification and monetization are the concepts that describe how items, services, or ideas become integrated into a market economy, which in this case are the content that we create. But these two focus on different aspects of it. Another is to properly evaluate and engage with organizations regarding privacy and data management practices. This, of course, involves the understanding of how platforms manage, process, and use online data. Now let's move on to the types of information, the safe and unsafe. Now first, what are the safe information that can be safely shared online without any risks? Well, of course, it is the general, non-identifiable details like our hobbies or our public, professional, or educational interests that we post online. Those are the safe information. But remember, when messaging or using video apps or accessing any type of tools on the internet, it is always advised to use a nickname that is different from your real name, as using your real name online or on the internet could be used against you or could be used somewhere else without your permission. So it is always to create a second name on the internet for yourself in order to avoid being hacked or it be used somewhere else without your permission. Now, for the unsafe information, the first basic of online safety is, of course, our personal information. So this means being careful about sharing information such as our full name, our address, our school or work, our social security number, and of course, our account usernames and passwords. These are very self-explanatory, as we wouldn't want any of these to be shared online or to be used by other people aside from us, di ba? So, these are the types of information that is unsafe to share and should withhold within you. You should not share this with any other people that you do not trust. Now, let's move on to the impact of digital technologies on our lives, online or offline. Now, what are these? Let us go onto the positive impacts online. First is faster communication. Very obvious one, as we all know that the digital platforms or the technology of today now allows people to communicate instantly through messaging apps, emails, and social media regardless of location. We all know that ever since pandemic, we have used technology as a communication tool that helps us communicate with people even across the globe or even across far away locations. So this is a positive impact. Another positive impact of technology that we use online is the easier access to information and learning. Now, the internet now provides unlimited access to knowledge, research materials, online courses, and educational resources. These right here are examples. We have used this in our research subject. A very prominent one is Google Scholar, ResearchGate, Science Direct, Academia Edu, and JSTOR. These are very prominent research resources or research materials that we use on the internet, no? And on the other hand, the negative impacts of technology online are as follows. First is cyberbullying and online harassment. A very important one to address so that people can be aware of this, no? Social media platforms unfortunately can expose individuals to bullying, harassment, and even harmful online interactions. Personally, I have experienced this also, being cyberbullied or being harassed online. So people must be aware of this and should know the consequences of using online in a negative way. Another negative impact is privacy and data security risks. We all know that personal information online can be stolen or misused through hacking, phishing, or data breaches. An example of this would be this image right here, where it shows where this is actually called phishing, where phishing is basically the suspicious notifications that we receive online or on our phones or our devices that always has this link, and it always asks us to click on those links, but actually when we click on those links, it leads us to another website or to another platform that could lead us to getting hacked or could lead us to getting our information stolen. So it is always important to know how to properly analyze if these are trustworthy or are reliable or not. Another negative impact is misinformation and fake news. If you have watched the video on News Step by Atom Araulio, he stated that fake news spreads quickly like a virus. So false information spreads quickly online, which can mislead people and influence public opinion. So again, we must understand privacy in MIL. We must be literate enough to know and to analyze which information that we are receiving and sharing online, if these are true or false. So we must know how to analyze them using tools or methods to properly analyze whether to properly fact check them whether it is true or false. Another negative impact is the digital divide. Despite increased connectivity, the digital divide still persists until this day, creating disparities in access to technology and internet connectivity. Even today, there are still people who still do not have access to technology or even have a proper stable internet connection. But let us move on to the positive impacts of using technology offline. Now, first is the increased productivity in workplaces. We all know that technology now helps automate tasks, improve efficiency, and make work processes faster in industries and offices. So this already helps us better our lives by having technology help us in helping our work or our assignments be done in a more efficient way. So that is a positive impact. Another is that smart devices improve daily life. Devices such as smartphones, our GPS on our devices, and smart home systems make daily tasks more convenient and efficient. A very self-explanatory, as I have already stated, that smart devices or technology already helps us communicate with other people way faster and way more efficient. And even our smart home systems also help us in our day-to-day lives. So that is another positive impact offline. But on the other hand, the negative impacts of technology offline are obviously being dependent on technology. Yes, I have stated that a positive impact would be the increased productivity of workplaces online as technology helps us do our tasks more efficiently. But this could also lead us to being overly reliant on technology, which can mislead people to perform everyday tasks. Another is the job displacement due to automation. Automation and digital machines now are starting to replace certain jobs, such as especially repetitive or manual work. An example of this would be an example of a repetitive work would be answering or receiving emails or sending out emails. that job is now starting to be replaced by AI, as that is a repetitive job. We all know that answering emails or sending out emails are basically a copy and pasting like it's the same structure. It's just copying and pasting the same text and sending out or answering those emails. So an advice for this for our generation of today is that we must choose wisely what what courses in college or what careers to choose in the future that is most unlikely to be replaced by technology or by AI. And that is the end of Unit 1, the understanding of privacy and media and information literacy. For a quick short summary, in the end, every click we make tells a story about us. The question is, are we really in control of that story? In a world where data is constantly being collected and shared, protecting our privacy comes down to the choices we make every day. And now, as we move beyond the basics and into the more complex and technical side of privacy, data, and development, let us welcome Lauren Nulada to take us further into the discussion. Lauren, you may now take the stage. Thank you.
Hello, good day, and I am Lauren Denise Arnolada, and I'm going to present my in class presentation in Media and Information Literacy. So, let me start with a simple situation. Have you ever searched for something online like clothes, books, a pair of shoes, or even skincare, and then suddenly see the same item everywhere on Facebook, YouTube, and even on other apps? At first, it feels like a coincidence, but over time, it starts to feel like something or someone is watching your activity. And that is why privacy matters. Today, we will talk about Unit 2, privacy, data, and development. How our data is collected, how it is used, and why protecting it is important. Now, have you ever seen those pop ups on websites asking you to accept these cookies? Familiar? Well, most of us just click yes without reading them all. But by doing that, we actually allow websites to track our behavior. Now, these are called cookies. Well, these are not the cookies you eat, but these are called HTTP cookies, or also known as Internet cookies. Cookies are small pieces of data stored in your browser to remember your preferences and activity. Some, like first party cookies, are which are generally safe, but third party cookies can track you across many websites. I'm not saying that all cookies are bad, but we should always be aware of what we allow when we go online. But thankfully, according to Chrome, they have set out two main policies to restrict third party cookies. First one was to block, and the second one was to trace URL patterns. But cookies, it all depends on the user setting on how he or she will handle those cookies. How many of you use incognito mode? Most people use it because they believe it gives them privacy, while others use it simply to avoid saving their browsing history. Well, actually, Chrome won't save your browsing history, cookies, and it also helps you with troubleshooting. Your activities might still visible to your ISP or your internet service provider, such as Globe, PLDT, Converge, or Sky, employers, or in a workplace, website operators, or keyloggers, or malwares. So in short, incognito mode does not make you invisible. Well, sorry for you guys. Sa kinsa gagamit kay makita gyapon inyong mga weird searches. It's still visible in the internet, and it just leads to frustration. In short, hindi ka ninja. So, at this point, it becomes important to connect this idea as well to a much larger concept. In a democratic society, there are three key pillars that support transparency and development. These are known as PI, which I made the acronym PI. PI stands for privacy, information, and expression. And among these three key pillars, privacy serves as the main foundation. And without it, our ability to freely express ourselves and access information can be compromised. Furthermore, it is also important to distinguish between two commonly confused terms: data privacy and data protection. Data privacy protects people's rights, while data protection protects the data itself. Parang safeguard. Pero hindi yung sabon na. What I meant is, by safeguard, that it is properly managed, our data is properly managed. And to reinforce this, in the Philippines, we also have the Data Privacy Act of 2012, Republic Act number 10173, which aims to protect individuals' personal data from misuse. However, even with laws in place, the question remains: are we doing our own part in protecting our own data? Don't you realize, guys, that most of us are already leaking our own data? And when you think about it, we constantly post stories, share moments, and upload instants on Instagram. And whenever we feel stress, sometimes we immediately go to Facebook to rant about our problems, maybe also in dump accounts, or also take a selfie with your credit card number, or take another one's person plate number. And it all feels normal when going back to mag-rant ka sa Facebook. It feels normal, even relatable. But have you ever stopped to ask yourself, who exactly are you sharing that with? And I know that you're aware of the privacy settings. Let's say, for example, this picture, Maria Carey 2.0 posted her picture that she was on the beach with a caption of "Me, the sunset, and the beach this weekend," gaining 2,067 likes. And yet, she is already revealing her location and the fact that she was away from home. And it's better to avoid oversharing in social media. Well, it is okay. We have the right to post anything in social media, but it's better if we post if it's like karang nahuman na ang event bitaw. So, para ma-protect imong self against any data leak. Well, when we say data leak, it is basically sensitive information that has been exposed to the public. Like example, your personal information, your birthday, your address, your credit card number or password, or like any passwords in general. And another situation, in another situation, let's take a look at the conversation between these three boys. So, naa si Mark, si Josh, and si Josiah. So, Mark announced in the GC, "Guys, may utang daw akong 45,000 pesos." Josh asked, "Ha? Kailan ka pa nagkapera para umutang? Wait, paano nangyari?" IDK, pero they know my full name, bro. Birthday, pati address. Josiah asked, "Did you click any links?" And Mark finally replied, "My free voucher kasi." So, congratulations! Hindi ka lang naka-free voucher, but you also made yourself vulnerable to identity fraud. And the worst part, wala namang dumating na voucher. Well, congratulations to Mark. Pero that's very alarming in this case if nahitabo gid na in real life. And another question, don't you find it annoying sometimes that there are posters sa Facebook? Have you encountered one? Well, it might be an influencer, fake services, or a known person closely tied in the government or a businessman. Well, according to the Philippine National Anti-Cybercrime Group, fake social media accounts are among the most common cybercrime complaints in the country. So, going back to the same situation, someone online might steal your photo, your name, and even create a fake account about you. Like, let's just say nga, naghimo siya another account nga, ginatawag nga Marky, but it's also your name. Nagbaligya daw siya longganisa, hotdog, siomai, chicken beef, Japanese available now, and PM for more details. And thankfully, na-aware iyang mga friends that it was a fake account. And and if you think about it, it's just a harmless prank, diba? But that is still identity fraud. Ikaw, nagahilom-hilom, ug ang isa na nagapabibo sa imong identity, which can also lead to what's the worst can happen? It can lead to criminal implication. Ikaw ang mapagbibintangan. When someone uses your identity to commit a crime, like a scam, fraud, or illegal transactions, and when authorities investigate, your name comes up. And let's move on to the next situation. The last situation. There is a student named Annie, kani siyang nakabon, who is so jealous of a high achieving classmate named Linda Walker, her academic rival, kaning nasa iyang kanang naka-glasses. And as we all know, Linda Walker, she is a consistent top academic student, has an active participation in class, and has a great leadership. And despite having no evidence, Annie decides to post a message online accusing Linda of cheating. So, according to her, not gonna drop names pero may top student dito sa school na to na hindi naman talaga deserves yung grades niya. Imagine consistent honor pero gumagamit lang pala ng kopya during exams. Kaya pala taas ng scores, may backup system daw. So, the post spreads quickly, gaining attention, reactions, and engagement. Dami namang retweets, madaming comments, shares, and likes. And from Linda Walker to issue starter, biglang dumami ang talker at mas dumami ang stalker. Now, instead of immediately giving you the answer for this situation or the analysis of this situation, you be the judge. Do you think this situation falls under cyber libel? Pangutan niyo inyong apan. Deserve ba ninyo Linda Walker? And for your information, guys, cyber libel is a defamation committed online. It includes online offenses such as hacking, cyberbullying, and identity theft. And in the Philippines, it is punishable under Cybercrime Prevention Act of 2012, Republic Act number 10175. And according to the Supreme Court of the Philippines, cyber libel occurs when someone posts statements online that falsely damage another person's reputation. And to guide you guys, Here are the elements or the criteria if it falls under cyber libel. First element is the imputation of a discreditable act. Was there an accusation? Definitely yes. Second, publication. Was it seen by others? Yes, it went viral nga ba, diba? Third element, malice. Was there malicious intent? Well, it just connects to the first element, which is accusation. So it's a check. Fourth one is identifiability of the victim. Can people identify the victim? Well, according to the given context, it is clear that it was Annie that posted it. It was also clear on her Facebook account that it was her. And the fifth one is use of computer system. Was technology use? Yes. And and the social media app that was used was Twitter. And given these elements, it becomes clear that online statements, even without directly naming a person, can still have legal and ethical consequences. And if Linda Walker decides to file a case against her, it would be 4 to 8 years jail time, probably for Annie. And it's just a win-win for Annie, of course. So, in simple terms, your data, your privacy, your identity, your words, they are all connected. Think of it like this. You can't just walk through the digital world blindfolded or you'll get tracked, leaked, copied, or even mocked. So in the wise words of me, don't just be a walker online, be a smart walker. Protect your steps, protect your name, and watch where you click. Because in the digital world, even a small step can leave a giant footprint. So walk wisely, click carefully, and post responsibly. Thank you. This is Laura Denise Arnolada from Grade 11 Aspiration, signing off. Bye.
So thank you for that wonderful presentation, Ms. Lauren Olada. Now, moving on to our next topic, the third unit, awareness of institutional obligations to protect your privacy and data. But first, let us establish why is it important that we are well aware of institutional obligations to protect our privacy and data. So, bakit nga ba? So, first is that when we are well aware of the institutional obligation, of course, we know what to do in case of a infringement or when our personal information got leaked. And not just that, we will know where and where to report and what to do in case of any of those things happening. Now, without without further ado, let us begin. But first, before we start, let me ask you guys a question. Are you familiar with any of these logos shown in the screen? Well, then if you do, then congrats, because today these are our topic, the key actors in the privacy protection area. So, what are they? So, isa-isahin natin. First is the government, legislature, and judiciary. So, the primary duty or the main purpose of the government, legislature, and judiciary, from the name itself, is to voice out and enforce any privacy protection related laws, including data protection. Their job is the law enforcement, of course, as they are named government. Yeah. So next we have the United Nations agencies, multilateral and other intergovernmental bodies, or also known as UN. So here, the groups like the UN Privacy and Data Protection Group, or the UNPPG, they advance dialogue, shows information, and promotes accountable data handling, while at the same time respecting human rights. Okay, so next we have the regulatory bodies. So if you guys know, we have, or here in the Philippines, we have one of the most commonly known regulatory body here is the NPC, or the National Privacy Commission. So what does the regulatory bodies do? So regulatory bodies, they design, implement, and monitor regulations and policies and program to ensure a more micro-level actions based on privacy and data protection laws of the country or international standards. So as written here, they ensure that organizations meet privacy standards, handle breaches, and coordinate with sectors for policy implementation. So next, moving forward, we have the public and private institutions. So, do you guys have any examples, or do you guys have any idea what are these public and private institutions? So, actually, public and private institutions includes those that offers public na mga services such as hospitals, our internet providers, because they do collect our data or personal information. So public and private institutions includes government entities that offer social services, such as I've said, the hospitals, various online or internet providers, mga PLDT, mga Globe, we have those. They act as data collectors and processors, and then they monitor various institutional mechanisms to protect the privacy of us, which is the users, the citizens, or the clients. Okay, I hope that is clear. Next, we have the non-governmental community-based organizations, or the NGO. Now, here in the Philippines, one of, no, not one, but a common non-governmental organization is the Organization of Data Privacy Professionals Incorporated, or the ODPP, which is which is their main task is to design and implement actions that promote literacy or media and information literacy in connection with privacy awareness, and of course to advocate. Next is individuals and groups. So this is basically us. So what is our main role? So as citizens, our main role includes being actively engaged. So actively engaged in what? Of course, in the privacy protection area. So actively engaged means that we, as citizens, we should allow ourselves to explore and to be more knowledgeable about things in relation to privacy protection, because when our personal information is leaked, it is not just a small matter. It actually possesses many risks. So of course, as citizens, we ourselves should be actively engaged in those privacy protection related na mga literacy. And of course, to be more MLL, uh, become actively engaged in privacy protection advocacy and MIL awareness processes. So this, the MI media information literacy. Now, for the last key actor, or in privacy protection area, we have the researchers or the academic community. So researchers or the academic community includes the University of the Philippines here, of course, and the Ateneo de Manila researchers. So their main task, of course, is to research about the privacy infringements, research on ways how to mitigate privacy violation, and of course the impact of the said risks. Their key aim is to inform and monitor privacy policies. Mm. So that is like all of the key actors and the privacy protection area. And now that we have established or identified those key actors involved in protecting our privacy, the next important question arises. What responsibilities do these institutions have when handling our personal info? So, the institutional obligations and protecting privacy. So, what are institutions required to do and why does accountability matters? So, first and foremost, here, so what are institutions required to do? Of course, lawfulness, fairness, and transparency. First is institutions are required to collect data legally with consent. Of course, as institutions, it is their job to really know uh, or the to let people know that prior of the collecting of the data, it should be agreed uh, both of them, the citizen and the institution. Next is to inform individuals about the purpose of collection, of course. And next is for the next obligation is accountability. So accountability, what does that imply? So mm, institutions should establish complaint mechanism, respond within legal time frame, and take corrective action when needed. Mm. So next is transparency in data use. So what does it mean when we say transparency in data use? Meaning, institutions should provide clear privacy policies and the disclosure of data usage. Of course, it also includes the informing of users about third-party sharing. Next, we have integrity and confidentiality. And from the word itself, confidentiality, it is confidential. Means that all data that is shared from one person is secured and must be confidential. Diba? Now, protecting privacy is not always simple. In many situations, privacy rights can conflict with another fundamental right. I know most of you guys are familiar with this fundamental right. It is the freedom of expression. Yes. Now, freedom of expression refers to what? You guys know? So now, let me give you guys a scenario. Okay, for example, let's just say a famous social media personality suddenly got into a big controversy. I'm sorry, 'cause I'm sweating. Controversy, and then with another famous celebrity, and then suddenly that person, she or he, suddenly leaked private messages or conversation between them. So, would you guys consider this as an exercise of freedom of expression or violation of someone's privacy? But before we go into that, let us first identify what is freedom of expression. So, as we all know, freedom of expression is a fundamental human right. It is our right to seek, receive, and impart information as humans, of course. And now, right to privacy. Right to privacy, it includes the protection of the personal data, protection from unwanted exposure, and of course, the respect for personal dignity. Now, going back sa atong example, okay, it shows how two important rights can sometimes clash. On one hand, freedom of expression allows people, of course us, to show opinions, ideas, and information freely because it is our own will. We have that fundamental human right, of course, as humans. On the other hand, individuals also have the right to protect their personal information and maintain their dignity. So it shows that there is a conflict between them, such as examples such as media reporting private details, viral posts exposing personal information, and the public interests versus personal rights. So the challenge in many media and communication environment is finding the right balance between these two rights. So, because of situations like this, it is important to acknowledge that freedom of expression is not absolute. It is absolute. So, what are the limitations, or are there any limitations nga ba when it comes to freedom of expression? Of course, there is. So, first limitation is when freedom of expression violates someone's privacy. That is one. Next is when it's just spreading of false information, most commonly known as defamation. And next, when it causes harm or harassment to other individuals. And lastly, when it exposes confidential data. So, though protected and democratic societies, of course, not just limitations. It has certain limitation when it comes to harming or violating others' rights. Gets? So, let's say, for example, a journalist. Okay, so a journalist, he himself or she herself cannot publish someone's private medical records without consent and simply claim that it is freedom of expression. No, no. Similarly, the sharing of someone's private photos online without permission is a violation of privacy. This is why laws and ethical guidelines exist to ensure that freedom is exercised responsibly. So, because conflicts between expression and privacy can often, or most of the time, happen in media, many countries establish institutions that help regulate media content and ensure these rights remain balanced. These is media regulation. So, what is it? So ano ang media regulation? So, media regulation are institutions or institutional bodies that help regulate and ensures that freedom of expression is exercised responsibly and does not harm public welfare or individual rights. So, here in the Philippines, I know most of you guys are grew up watching TV. At least once you saw or you've already seen this logo of the MTRCB, or most common, or it actually stands for Movie and Television Review and Classification Board, or MDRCB. So MDRCB, they review films and television programs, they classifies media content, protects minors from harmful content, and ensures responsible media broadcasting. So their main role is to help protect public welfare, especially minors, while still allowing creative expression through films, through media ng mga things, films, telenovelas, those. From media regulation in the Philippines and around the world. So here in South Korea, they have the KCSC, or the Korea Communication Standards Commission. USA, we have the FCC, or the Federal Communication Commission. Ofcom from the United Kingdom, and IMDC in Singapore. And also, here locally in the Philippines, we have the KBP, or most commonly known from radio stations, the kapisanan ng mga broadcasters ng Pilipinas. Yes. So, in summary, protecting privacy in today's digital society requires cooperation between institutions, regulatory bodies, and of course, us as individuals, as citizens. Understanding the balance between freedom of expression and privacy right is essential, ensuring responsible communication and protecting human dignity. And that is all for my report. And now I will be uh, sharing, or I will be passing to the next reporter, Miss Ira Ondara. Thank you.
So now, while important kayo nga we know how to protect our data, what happens if it gets misused? So in the first semester, I'm not sure if you guys remember, but one of our classmates got upset because somebody shared a picture of his face without his permission. And to make matters worse, a friend from RS, one of the schools, sent him a screenshot of his cropped face. And turns out it was just a misunderstanding, but it still shows how personal data can be used without your consent. And situations like this, dili na siya joke. This is what we call privacy infringement. As STEM students, we often focus on how technology is built, but today we'll focus on how it can be misused to violate our rights. So first, what is privacy infringement? Privacy infringement happens when personal data is used, collected, or shared without proper control or consent. In simple terms, it means your private information is being accessed or exposed in ways you did not agree to. So in the Philippines, we actually have a kind of bodyguard for our data called the Data Privacy Act of 2012. And this law created the National Privacy Commission, which is responsible for protecting personal data. So if a company loses your data, they can't just say sorry, they are legally accountable. And under our Constitution, privacy isn't a suggestion, it's your right. You? Yes. So there are four main types of privacy infringement. First, we have intrusion into seclusion, public disclosure of private facts, false light, and appropriation of likeness. So let's go through them one by one. First type is intrusion into seclusion. And this happens when someone invades your private space, especially your digital space, without permission. And a common example is hacking into personal accounts or devices. In the Philippines, there was a 2025 Gcash Oversleep 8351 investigation. A hacker named Oversleep 8351 who claimed they were selling the data of 8 million Gcash users on the dark web for $25,000. Of course, everyone would be shocked. But however, after a deep investigation by the NPC and CICC, they found that the Gcash servers were never actually touched. So it was just a bluff. So ang lesson ani kay not all threats are real, but privacy threats are always taken seriously. So next up we have public disclosure of private facts. This happens when true but private information is shared publicly, even if it's not a public concern. So a local example is online lending apps, which shame borrowers by sending messages to their contacts. These apps sometimes use data scraping tools, which collect personal information from poorly secured databases. Third type is false light. False light happens when someone is portrayed in a misleading or offensive way. Like, giilad ang perception sa mga tao about sa inyo. A modern example is deepfake videos, which can make it appear that someone said or did something that they never actually did. Pretty sure we've all seen some deepfake videos and yeah, di ba more real kayo? Scary. So, dili tanan makita online kay tinuod. Say edited, say fake, say pang content lang. So, number 4, appropriation of likeness. This happens when someone uses your identity, like your face, name, or voice, for profit without permission. So basically, an example for this is poser accounts or AI voice scams. And speaking of that, let's talk about artificial intelligence. Yes, most use AI pang assignment, pang study, or pang survive sa deadlines. And initially, it may seem harmless and sometimes even associated with what we call brain rot content, like kaning mga ballerina cappuccina, tung 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 sahur. Yeah. If this is brain rot content where it produces low quality outputs, but let's be honest, guys, entertaining job siya. And like AI, they only take in information to generate an output. And in some cases, AI can even mimic writing styles or voices, and this is where attackers manipulate individuals by pretending to be someone they trust, but they are not. This is called AI-driven social engineering. Yeah. Now, our next topic will be data leaks. So now, what is a data leak? A data leak happens when sensitive or confidential information is accessed without authorization, exposed to the public, or stolen by hackers. A well-known example is the Comelec data breach, also known as Common Leak. Yeah. So in 2016, the Commission on Elections experienced a massive data breach where millions of voters' records were exposed online. This incident showed how failure to secure databases can affect millions of Filipinos. So, data leaks may expose birth dates, addresses, government IDs, and passwords. And this shows that if data is not protected properly, millions of people can be affected. So, next topic is getting redress for privacy infringement. So, what should we do kung ma-violate atong privacy? Hindi pwede nga, okay, move on. We need to report it. So, where to report privacy infringement? Where can individuals report privacy violations? First, they report to the organization involved, then they file a complaint with the National Privacy Commission, and then seek legal assistance if necessary. Now that we know where to report it, I'll be showing you how to report it. So knowing how to report is important because it helps protect your personal information, ensure your complaint is taken seriously, and help institutions improve privacy practices. So the first step is contact the organization. Reach out to them and file a complaint. Ewan wala imong data ng good na. Then, wait for their response. And if wala tarong response, escalate. Dili literal na escalate ha. Ipasaka mong concern adto sa higher authority. You can report to the Privacy Commission and sila ang bahala nimo mahandle na. Like, yeah, they'll just take care of it. And step 3, if your complaint is still unresolved, seek legal help. Pwede na ka mag-consult of lawyer or legal aid. Yeah. So those are 3 steps in how to report. Now, case scenario. Let's apply what we've learned. Here it is. A student posts their school ID online. Later, fake accounts use their identity. So first question. What type of privacy infringement happened? A. Intrusion into seclusion. B. Public disclosure of private facts. C. False light. Or D. Appropriation of likeness. The answer is D. Appropriation of likeness. Dili siya intrusion kay walay nang hack. Dili po disclosure kay dili lang pang share like gigamit lang dyan. And dili po false light kay wala gi misrepresent gi impersonate it. So question number 2. What should the student do first? A. Ignore it and hope it goes away. B. Report the fake accounts and contact the platform. Or C. Post another ID online. Or D. Confront the hacker directly. Correct answer is B. Because the first thing you should do is stop the misuse immediately. Reporting fake accounts helps them get taken down, and contacting the platform ensures action is taken quickly. And dili pwede ignore kay basin madaghan pa. So, last but not least, question number 3. Where should this be reported if it's not resolved? A. School principal only. B. Local police station. C. National Privacy Commission. Or D. Social media friends. So the correct answer is, of course, National Privacy Commission, because they are the official authority in the Philippines that handles data privacy issues. And if the problem isn't resolved, sila lang mo investigate and take action. Like, think of them as the bodyguards sa atong data. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you for listening. Stay safe, stay private, and think before you click.